Folks, today was already going to be a big news day as planned before this awful incident in London and before the surprise announcement from the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee this afternoon. In an apparent attempt to validate President Trump's wiretapping claims, which we are going to now disrupt, because here's Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on House Intelligence, responding to Devin Nunes.
Information that the chairman was referring to, and therefore it is really impossible for us to evaluate any of the merits of what the chairman has said. But I can say this. The chairman will need to decide whether he is the chairman of an independent investigation into conduct which includes allegations of potential coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russians, or he is going to act as a surrogate of the White House because he cannot do both. And unfortunately, I think the actions of today throw great doubt into the ability of both the chairman and the committee to conduct the investigation the way it ought to be conducted. I have expressed these grave concerns with the chairman. I only learned about this the way that all of you did when the chairman briefed the press in advance of briefing his own committee members. And that is a deep, deep problem. I think it does underscore the importance of establishing an independent commission, a body that is fully independent of any political considerations, including those that may emanate from the White House. That would certainly give me a lot of confidence that in addition to whatever work our committee does and the Senate Intelligence Committee does, that there is a truly independent body that is looking into the grave issues that have been raised. Second, with respect to the intercepts themselves that the chairman referenced, those have not been provided to the committee for our evaluation. But on the basis of what the chairman has said and on the basis of my conversation with the chairman, I can say this. There is still no evidence that the president was wiretapped by his predecessor. President Trump's claims that he was remain as baseless today as they were yesterday. And they were the day before when the directors of the FBI and NSA testified that they were made without any basis in fact. If the incident today is an indication that after making the baseless claim, the president then aggravated the damage by implicating the British in a potential plot to have the British surveil him on behalf of President Obama, and now is attempting to interfere in the congressional investigation, again with the effort of trying to provide some substance to a claim without substance, then the damage, the wrecking ball of this allegation has just claimed another victim, that being our own committee. What I understand from the chairman is that he has reviewed intercepts of foreign intelligence. And what I understand from the chairman is there's no indication that that surveillance was anything but lawful. And what people need to understand about foreign intelligence gathering and incidental collection is if we are listening to two foreign spies, for example, talking to each other on foreign soil, or two representatives of a foreign government, and they mention a U.S. person, that is incidental collection. It doesn't necessarily mean there is a call from a foreign party to a U.S. person. Even the mention of a U.S. person is incidental collection, and that name would be masked. If there is a call with a U.S. person or U.S. person identities are involved at all, those names are masked. But there are proper procedures for unmasking a name. When it is necessary for the intelligence agencies to understand the significance of the intercept, and they cannot do that when the names are masked, you can properly unmask the name. The chairman has provided no evidence that any names that were unmasked improperly. And of course, without the ability for the committee to look at the intercepts, we're not in a position to evaluate whether the procedures were followed or were not followed. Moreover, as I understand from my conversation with the chairman, most of the names in the intercepts were in fact masked. And the chairman's concern was that he could still figure out the identities of some of the parties even though the names were masked. Well, that doesn't mean that the masking was improper. And so, again, it's impossible to evaluate whether there's any there in terms of these intercepts without the committee being able to look at them. And thus far, the chair has not provided this evidence to the committee. So this is deeply troubling along many levels. But among the most significant levels is it really impedes our ability to do this investigation the way we should. I've been part of investigations that were conducted properly when the House Intelligence Committee investigated Benghazi, and I've been part of investigations that were not, such as the Benghazi Select Committee. It was my hope that our investigation could be conducted properly. It's still my hope that this investigation should be conducted properly, but unfortunately the actions of the chair throw that very much in doubt, and I'd be happy to respond to your questions.
Did he tell you?
Yes.
Did the chairman give you any indication why he decided to go to the White House before he came to you with any information?
No, and that's a good question for the chairman. I certainly did express my concern that that is simply not a way to conduct a credible investigation. Thank you.
What did he say in response to that? Did he tell you when you'll get to see that?
Wow, an extraordinary counter press conference from Adam Schiff, the ranking House Democrat. All of this is in response to an initial stunning decision today by the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, who apparently got new information about perhaps folks that were caught up in incidental surveillance and when it comes to foreign intelligence, that folks that have been incidentally caught up in the gathering of information important on things overseas. And the question is, he decided to brief the president before he briefed essentially anybody in the Intelligence Committee outside the Speaker of the House, this so-called Gang of Eight. I'm going to get to this story in a minute, but joining me right now is West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin. He is a member of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator Manchin, it was an extraordinary decision from Devin Nunes today. What's your level of concern about what you've seen and heard today between Devin Nunes and then now Adam Schiff?
My level of concern, Chuck, is what I would think most Americans would be right now. Can Congressman Nunes be impartial in his deliberation on whatever information we gather in the investigation that we're doing? It's being done, as we know. We're going to be hearing that gathering of information and have to make some decisions, and it's going to be hard for people to believe that he could be impartial.
You know, this comes at a time, if you recall, and I know this happened a couple weeks ago, but the White House essentially reached out to the two Republican chairmen of the Intelligence Committees, Devin Nunes and Richard Burr, who's the Republican chairman of the Intelligence Committee that you sit on, to essentially help push back on some of these stories. That made a lot of folks in Congress uncomfortable because these are oversight committees that are designed to provide accountability of the executive branch by the legislative branch. These are not staffers of the White House. How concerned are you about Senator Burr?
Chuck, the only thing I can say is knowing Senator Burr and knowing Senator Warner, both our chair and our ranking member, I'm happy to say that I don't believe that this would have ever happened in the Senate from one of our intelligence chairs or leaders. With that being said, I think it would give everybody cause and pause to be very careful what they're saying and how involved they're going to get unless it's involved in the committee setting.